Greetings and Nadi friends. I'm very happy to have with me our masters, Ara Dinkjian and Kudsi Erguner. And in this episode 101, I'm very happy to discuss a very important topic with them that's really relevant to what they have seen so far with their experience with such maqam or model music. And the question is going to be what did time tell actually about many things that we will see together. And before we start, I'd like to have a brief about every one of them. Please introduce yourselves.
Please start, Ara.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm Ara Dinkjian. I'm an Armenian born in America. My grandparents were from Diyarbakir and Harput. And so this culture and these sounds and these, as you say, makam music is in my DNA. And even though I'm born in America, I tried to listen to what my body was telling me, and I followed that. And in addition, I'm looking at the background of where Mr. Erguner is sitting, and I see books and everything, and I have a similar background with the records, and these are my great teachers, the old records, because I did not have access to the masters directly, so my teachers were the old records, and they continue to be, and I'm just trying to continue what was started hundreds of years ago.
Interesting.
Is it my turn now?
Please.
Yeah, but I am not from Diyarbakir, but I was born in Diyarbakir.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because my parents, they had to be there for a short period, and on my identity card is born in Diyarbakir.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a chance that even that we are from the same city, even that I am from Istanbul.
Right.
My parents and everybody is from Istanbul. So we already done some Zoom programs with Fadil. Well, what to say? I am a ney player. I play ney, and I am very much involved with the court music, not from Istanbul, but in all over the Orient, from 15th century, that we can say from the Herat to Samarkand to Nishabur, but all the cities, they had this kind of court music, which is my interest. But of course, living in Europe and collaborating with different musicians, it happens also that I do other projects that they are mine, like album of Islam blues or La Banda La Turca, or some jazz albums and concerts, and I even played John Cage. Yeah, because I'm open to make many experiences, but my really mission, personal mission, is really to discover this old repertoire. And when I say old, it's not to be thrown in the rubbish, because they are so beautiful, and they can be also today's musics. But the problem, to come to your question, Father, I think the music grows up with the public who listens it. This relation is very important for me, and I think even the Greek philosophers, they were saying. I think Socrates said this: if you want to see the changement of a population, listen to their music. Now, we are talking about a music. Most of the time, we say this ethnic from a region of the world, or Turkish or Armenian, etc. We give a name to this.
Yeah.
But now, as Ara is living in New York, I'm living in Paris, we are international musicians. So is our public is global,
Mm.
and most of the time our public is not a direct public; it's indirect public. We
Mhm.
don't know who listens when we do a CD. We
Mhm.
don't have it face to face, except that when we do the concerts. But even though we are not in contact really, so it's normal that this situation has an effect on us, on our music also. It doesn't mean that we are trying to please a larger public. It's not a question of to be popular, but of course, by the things that we are listening, as Ara was saying, that he learned the music by listening recordings.
Yeah.
Of course, that we are influenced by the things that are pleased. When I listen, for example, sometimes Indian music, I am very much touched, and it has an effect on my
Yeah.
music. It's totally normal. And if I listen something that Ara has done, if it pleased to me, it becomes my musical universe. And I am sure that the same for Ara also. I think we should consider ourselves as musicians having a classical reference, but we are from today.
Mm. Very interesting. Very interesting. So I think we touched on two very important points. Let's maybe have an explicit response to them. How do you see the interest throughout the years with your experience? How do you see the interest in such music to the citizens of the world today? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Is it negligible?
I personally have found that there are trends that happen in
Mm.
music.
Yeah.
Certain things become fashionable for a moment. I remember a friend of mine came from Bulgaria to America, a musician, wonderful musician, and at first he was trying to hide his identity as being uh, being a gypsy. He did not want anybody to know he was a gypsy
Mhm.
until he discovered that gypsy music was extremely attractive and fashionable in America at that moment. And then he was so proud to say, "I am a real gypsy. I'm the real gypsy." And these things come and go. These categories, these trends. Um, I personally, that's not what I look for. Whether it's fashion in clothes or fashion in music, I'm not very current. I'm just trying to follow what seems attractive to me personally. And that may seem selfish, but it's really the only way I could possibly live or make music.
Mhm.
Um, because things are changing. I may agree or disagree with the listeners, but all I have to offer is my own vision of the world,
Mhm.
uh, and that's what I will leave after I'm dead. This is how I saw the world, and the music is our document. So these, as I said, these are trends that come and go. I remember the first album that I had made. I had made a demo recording, and somebody sent it to RCA Records, and they contacted me and they said, "We have your demo here. Is it new age music?" And I said, why? Oh, new age is the next thing, and we're looking for new age recordings. I said, of course, I'm new age. This is new age, of course. I didn't even know what new age was, but it was an opportunity for me to sign with a label and get, good distribution. And it's new age, it's world beat, it's fusion. I remember they asked Duke Ellington
Mhm.
about his jazz music. And he said, and I'm talking about this is early 1930s. He said, "My music is not jazz." And the interviewer was shocked. "What do you mean it's not jazz? What is it?" He says, "It's my music."
Mhm.
Because again, categories are for the record stores. Where should we put this? But as Mr. Erguner was saying, he does a variety, and I agree. I'm very open, and I do a variety of musics and collaborate with with anybody and everybody I can to expand my own musical experience and knowledge. And the categories can blur, and I don't really think they're so important. What's more important, and Duke Ellington said, there's good music and bad music.
Mhm. Mhm. Interesting.
Yeah, if I can add something to this subject, we should think in the opposite sense. There are many musicians which they have done Western classical music conservatories.
Mhm.
And then, yes, even that they are playing in a symphonic orchestra, if they are interested, they go to join to some folk music or something else. Why not?
Mhm.
But the problem is when we are, for example, I like very much the compositions of Amparsum Dinkjian.
Mhm.
Recently, we played his Hisar Buselik Murabba, which is a fantastic composition. This is something that I like. This is my classical reference.
Mhm.
It's not because once it happens that Ara says, come and we do something, just a jam session. Why not?
Mhm.
So they say, ah, no, no, no. Either they say, you are a fanatic of the classical old music, either you are, there is no possibility to pass to one to other. This
Mhm.
is a problem that we really, I personally live a lot. And so when somebody listens only the old piece, like Amparsum de Mondial, 18th century, he's a passeist. He's living in the past. So if happens that without listening the other one, they listen by, I don't know, something that I have done with a jazz musician, he's not anymore traditional. So it's absolutely nonsense because it's not because you are playing some minuet or some oratorio or some requiem that you are a fanatic Christian or you play some classical concerto or something like this that you are passeist.
Mhm.
And it's not that you play also some contemporary music, you are futurist. I mean, it's absolutely nonsense. We are musicians
Mhm.
and we have our instruments and we can contribute to any kind of music is permitted.
Mhm.
But doesn't mean that we have our own taste,
Yeah.
our pleasure, what is our universe, what is my universe of music. I consider that my universe of music has its sources in the past, but I consider that a bit, even a bit, I did assimilate them. So
Mhm.
it has some reflex on my what I do today.
Mhm.
And just to conclude, I say to the musicians that I work together, I always say that when we play a Peshev, even 200 years before, composed 200 years before, you should play it like you just composed it,
Mhm.
just discovered, and you have the pleasure. Because the music is a communication of a joy, interior joy. If you don't have it, you are an executor. And sometimes you execute the music also.
Mhm. Interesting. So I move to the next question about the impact of globalization on the local musics. I mean, throughout the decades you worked in this music, did you see negative impact on local musics, or this was mostly things that theorists has said? What did you see at then? Global
Well,
impact on local music. Yeah.
yeah, I think you're referring to technology, and just look at what we're doing right now, and from all around the world, we're just having this conversation as if we're in the same room together, and that has obviously affected music. I'm not so negative about the technology, um, even though I'm as you know, fanatic collector of the old records, gramophone. Um, I still embrace the technology not as the root or foundation of what we're trying to do, but but to help us to realize the music as sincerely as possible. Um, the impact that I see that it's had is that, for example, if we take percussionists.
Mhm.
Now, the darbuka players, they have studied African, Indian, Latin, uh, gypsy. They have all the different techniques, whereas they used to just have their own local technique. So personally, I find this very, very exciting. It's as if the language is becoming more universal and understood by all of us, and there are greater points to meet
Mhm.
and to collaborate. Um, Personally, I think it's wonderful if it's used in a in the proper way, in a respectful way, and again, not to be the main point. The technology should not be the foundation of what we're doing, but
Mhm.
rather, and you know, I remember giving a lecture once in Thessaloniki, and there was an argument that was started by one of the members in the audience, that because the last point that I made was that the future will be MIDI and
Mhm.
electronic, and I mean,
Mhm.
as music progresses, as everything, the electronics are becoming more and more
Mhm.
prominent, and the question had something to do with how could you even talk about that? That's going to be the death of music, and they were against that development. And I made the point where even though I was holding a Manol Oud that was made in 1903, I said, but you know what? The strings that I'm using are synthetic.
Mhm.
The muzrab that I'm holding is plastic. These are relatively new inventions, and
Mhm.
and God knows if say Yorgo Bajanos was alive today, he would be using a modern pick as opposed to an eagle's feather that broke, every 5 hours. Or so I embrace the technology, but use it with caution.
Interesting. Yes.
Well, I don't have yet any plastic nail. So it's very organic, my instruments. So, but I know, for example, the wood, now they made the wood without the resonance case. I mean, just
Mhm.
a circle with this thing. Well, uh, why not? But I think that for me, the technology, or every knowledge even, that
Mhm.
is like something to be used.
Mhm.
But the problem, when you give this, for example, like a sword, very, very sharp knife,
Mhm.
if you
Yeah.
give to the hand of a kid of 5, 10 years old, he will cut his hand.
Mhm.
Okay. But if you give it in the hand of somebody who knows how to use it, it's very useful.
Mhm.
But the problem is not the material that you use for the music, but is
Mhm.
your maturity in the art of the music. That's another subject. So
Mhm.
I totally agree with Ara. Sometimes you see when we do the concerts, we are amplified. They give some reverb, etc., etc. But the problem is, of course, I prefer to play personally the acoustic, really acoustic music. But it's not
Mhm.
always possible. I mean, you need to be amplified and make a balance between the instruments. That gives them possibilities. For example, I have a recording in which I use zurna.
Mhm.
Normally, the volume of the zurna covers everything. I cannot play nail next to it. And in the same album, there is also a saxophone player. If I play next to a saxophone player, you don't hear anything of the nail. Okay? But the technology gives the possibility to appreciate the sound of these two instruments that naturally you cannot hear. Yeah, these kind of possibilities are really useful to appreciate in another level the music. But there is one other problem, which is for me is a harm, is the fact that with the globalization, we have a sort of form of presentation of the sound and of the presentation of the music, etc. And when you go into it, everything becomes like it sounds like same. I don't know if you follow me.
Very clear to me.
Yeah, but I mean, for example, if you take an Indian musician, we were talking about India. Normally, when he starts with the tampura, etc., is already 1 or 2 minutes. That one note it goes,
Yes.
and there is a small movement afterward. You cannot do this today because the producer will say, "Oh, go quick, it's too much," because people they will get bored. You see, so it's the fact that not only the technology, but also we are also forced to adapt to the situation, to the public, to the need of the public, and to the also to the need of the musical industry. But if you look, for example, even the old recordings of Turkish music, I remember in the live, because I even played with Yorgo Bacanos.
Oh,
I was 15, 16 years old, and and they were playing without considering the time. There was no stress of time when we were playing in the what with Mejlis in the meeting. You see,
Yeah.
so you could go around just around 2, 3 notes for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Nobody would get bored. But today you are obliged to make movements to attract people. So this kind of situation related to the technology and related to the audience uh, gives oblige us to do some changement in our expression, which is totally normal. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not.
if I may, I would like to add one thing. I remember, I think it was over 30 years ago, I was traveling and playing a lot in Greece. And at that time, I was going to many different cities and villages, and I would look for the local clarinet player and ask them, "How do you play this folk song?" And they would play it for me, and I would say, "Oh, that's wonderful. You know, I was just in the other village, which is very close, and you know they play it like this." And they would get angry. "Oh, they don't know anything. It's all wrong. This is the correct way." And I loved this because not just the country or the city, but each village had its own identity. It could be the dress, it could be the food, it could be the dialect that they're speaking. This is one of the negative results of this uh,
Yeah,
technology, that we're losing that individual identity.
absolutely, absolutely. I always say that the our music, I mean, when I say our music, all Eastern music, non-European music, is personal. I don't say that it's ethnic even, but it's personal. But Western music, classical sense, is collective. And I always think that is very big paradox because Western societies are very individualist, but in music they are collective. We in Orient we are very community, but in music we are very personal.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the music is a space that you are personally you can express yourself personally, which is so extraordinary. For example, for an A player, from the first note you can say who is playing. I'm not talking the melody, the style, from the first note. Even for the oud, you can record if somebody who knows about the music can easily say, "Ah, this is Ara, or this is Hrant, this is Yorgo," because there's a touch, personal touch, which is necessary. When we kill this, music is dead.
I think you could extend that to jazz also. Uh, from the 1920s to the 1950s, like you said, you could hear one note and say, "Oh, this is John Coltrane. This is Miles Davis. This is," you knew exactly, because it's not. It's of course their tone, but it's it's more than just their sound. It's everything that you're experiencing when you listen to them was an individual identity, and it's actually one of the things that I try to emphasize to my students, that we always begin by emulating those that we admire. Okay, but if you want to be a musician, your obligation is to define your identity as a musician. And that takes a lot of time. It takes many years of experience in playing. But that, for me, that's the ultimate goal. I would rather somebody say, "Oh, that's definitely Ara. I hate the way Ara plays," rather than, "I'm not sure who that is."
Yeah, absolutely. You are right. You are right, but also this is rare. Now, I mean, today is not so many people can say involved into the music. This is the touch of Ara. This is the sound of Kudsi. Because, as I said in the beginning, because the meloman, the real music lovers, are rare. Okay, because music has different function. It can be a deep passion for somebody that to see can go so deep into listening and then understanding the music, and also there are people which they like a certain atmosphere, and on that level, which is the large public of us, there is no difference. I mean, anybody who starts yesterday to play oud is like equivalent of you, or anybody who takes the Nate yesterday, and he's also an A player, and doesn't matter Kudsi or Ali, Veli, etc. So I'm talking that we also lost some on this sense, as we were talking in the beginning. The public is changed now. The music listeners are changed. Let me tell you one experience that I had, because when I was 15, 16 years old, you know George Kun Sabah, the wood player?
Of course.
George Kuhn, his brother, Blunt, etc. We were playing a lot together. And one day, Udi Hrant, came, and he wanted to invite us to play with him, because there was a marriage in Beyazıt in Yumni Pastanisi. And what he said, the young married, he likes very much Tatyos Efendi, and we are going to play Suzinak Fasıl. You can imagine today a marriage, and the people of marriage, they ask, "I want musicians to play Suzinak Fasıl." It's absurd. It doesn't exist, you see. So today we don't have, even in a deep sense of the music listeners, we don't have that much people who can distinguish that you make a Taksim in Sega or you go to Zam, etc. No, just he plays oud.
You're so right. You're so right. You're so right.
Interesting. So if I move to the next point, it's about the repertoire versus the making of new music, where there is the tendency of keeping the old music for museums, or maybe preserve, no interpretation, no rendering, nothing, or only learning it by ear, versus the other extreme, or the way Kutsi has described, where you play it as it was composed by you today, and the side of new compositions. There is also the point of fusion, mixing, taking something and presenting it in a new format, a new context, and the point of the limits to the alteration of the repertoire. So basically, what did experience tell us about the way shall we consider the repertoire versus the making of new music at these aspects?
So it seems we have this pattern. I answer first. I hope that's okay. I'm not trying to.
Please do it, because on that subject you have more experience than.
Well, I was going to say that my own musical life is really divided very clearly. I have myself transcribed thousands of pieces of let's say, for example, Turkish classical repertoire or what have you, to teach to my oud students. Um, and the reason why I transcribe them instead of printing them out from the internet is twofold. First of all, transcribing a piece, physically writing it down, is for me a great way to learn it. Because you have to really pay attention to every note, literally every note. So it's a very good way for me to learn. But also, uh, in Turkey, as you probably know, they write everything up a fourth from where it actually sounds. And I've always been very frustrated and confused by that. I know there are reasons for it, but I have this system where la is la, and I so therefore I write it out like that. Anyway, that said, for me, it was never satisfying or enough to interpret other musics. I always, uh, even as a child, was composing, trying to find, I say find melodies because I don't like the idea of considering one a creator. You know, that's for things that are much larger than me. But listening in the silence and trying to hear melodies and writing them down, and so and that became the other part of my life, composing. I call them like little folk melodies, but whatever they are, for me it's a perfect balance, to recognize, to acknowledge the masterpieces, and to try to add to the repertoire, but again, only once I've studied the masterpieces. So I know where I'm coming from, to try to bring it forward, even if it's just 1 inch, to bring it forward and to leave something that wasn't there before me. And that's been my goal.
Interesting. Mhm.
What I should add to all this, because I have also the same problem because I'm teaching in Rotterdam Conservatory, Codarts, and we can compare the situation with the language. You see, you can be a poet, but you are not a well-educated person to put your inspirations in good words. And you can be a very well-educated person, but not having a spirit of a poet. You can only recite the poem of the others. When the two things is coming together, a learned person, but also a poet, the result is really fantastic. If you put this in the music, most of the time what we call the fusion today, which is for me is a confusion, it's not a fusion. Because I mean, it's not because you play an Oriental instrument and you have a piano next to it and the bass and the drum and you are already making a fusion. That's not true. The thing, if you pretend to be a poet without knowing any language, without learning anything, your work also is not so rich. And also, if you are not a real poet in your spirit, and the result is can be very catastrophic. So, I think anybody who is interested in music, he should learn the language of the music. Okay. For example, if you say somebody, what is Uşak? Ah, yes, I understand. You show just one thing, one phrase. I understand the Uşak. But there is thousands of things to learn about the Uşak. It's not just, which means that to study, pardon, at least a peshrev, a semai, a composition, a song, some repertoire on it, to have an idea. But today, most people, which they make the vision, I say, okay, you go to Neva, to the guys, okay, it is Uşak. It is not. And then what is coming out of this, sorry, is very limited. So that's why I insist whatever you do with, but you have to make your musical universe richer possible. Your knowledge about the music richer possible. It's not because you are technically using well your instrument that you can do any fusion is possible. Because if I didn't study English, you see, I speak to you in English now. I'm not living in England also. But when I have something to say, I manage to express it. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
I could be a very, very well educated in English, but if I don't have anything to communicate to you, it will be a very empty rhetoric. We have the same thing in the music also. You see? So to have something to say with the music is a whole nectar of a civilization, the best nectar, which includes the poetry, the music of the others, the makams, the systems, and the measures, and there's also a very mathematical part of it. I mean, all this makes one. So when we look in a very Orientalist way, oh, he's playing good, okay, that is okay, you know, it's a very interesting sound, and so what? That's a big problem today because, first of all, the Western side of the world doesn't look to the non-European music as it should be estimated. We see it only with some, yeah, okay, young boy who plays some tambura or something like this with a darbuka. It's nice music, okay, but you see, we have a very simplist and populist look to the non-European music. I think it's up to us artists who are involved in this music to bring it to a estimated level, which merits.
Interesting. Anything else to add? Yeah, carry on, please.
I'm sorry. I was going to agree very much. And somebody, I forgot which one of us, said something about that the role that music plays in our lives today is very different than the role it played, let's say, a generation or a few generations ago. And I think this is one of the things that we as musicians are struggling with. It doesn't have the same role in our lives. I know as a child, music was what we did. Uh, uh, let me say, when somebody died, there was a song to sing. When a child was born, there's a song to sing. When you want to ask God to make it rain so you can have crops, there was a song to sing. Uh, there was music was not something that was on the stage where there's this literal physical distance between the performer and the listener, and they perform and then you clap and they go home and you go home. It was in the house. Music was in my house every day. Everybody was singing. This was it was like water. It's like you're gonna wake up, you're gonna drink water, you're gonna sing. And what song you were going to sing depended on the situation. These things are obviously changing, and they're changing quite fast. And personally, I'm trying to keep my place in what I'm doing and find a place to put it. And sometimes it becomes difficult to find that place. It used to be you make a CD. Okay, now CDs are not the thing anymore. It's going very fast, but we're hanging on. We're trying.
Yeah. Would you like to add anything, Kutsi, on this point?
Yeah, I mean, we can remain all day on that subject. But I just want to tell you one anecdote because we forget always one thing that is sorry, is the question of belonging.
Yeah.
You see, for example, I was giving a concert in Berlin in a church. The only German people in the public, and there was one Turkish lady She was a newspaper lady.
Mhm.
And she comes to me, Mr. Erguner, why German people, they like Turkish music?
Mhm.
And the concert that I made, it was on the poems of Goethe
Mhm.
and in German. It's another problem.
Mhm.
But I said, you see, madam, for me, there is no Turkish music, Armenian music, English music, etc. There is only music lovers, melomans. So these people, if they come to listen to me, because they like music, that's all.
Mhm.
Why we have to fix a belonging to everything?
Mhm.
I'm sure that Araman, he makes a concert. Maybe many Armenian people, they will go to listen to him because he's an Armenian.
Mhm.
It's pity. And I promise you, till 1920s, 19, 2000, in my contracts, there was a point, don't advertise the Turkish community. You understand what I mean? Because they come only because there is a Turkish music. And the music I do is not their village music or nothing also that they have shown in the television. So that's a big problematic. We should appreciate the things without putting an etiquette on it.
Mhm.
Okay? I'm not saying this is fusion music, new age music, Armenian music, Turkish music. All this is nonsense.
Mhm.
Bravo.
Interesting. Interesting. May I ask you a question about the effective learning process? We have seen a lot of students, a lot of colleagues, schools, conservatories, meshk, all sorts of things. What is it exactly that is contributing to an effective learning process to make a musician?
Uh, I, I, like many musicians, was playing music maybe even before I could speak or walk. I was banging on the table. So this is not anything that was a conscious decision. It was apparently programmed inside of me, and thank God my parents supported that hunger that I had by getting me instruments or lessons or whatever. But regarding your question I, about education and the learning process, I wound up going to a Western classical conservatory,
Hmm.
uh, although I was not a Western classical musician. I played piano as my audition, but that was not really my strong point. But I treasured the experience because what it gave me,
Hmm.
mind you, it did not give me music. Music, like I said, was already in me.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking credit for that as some accomplishment on my part. I'm just saying it continues to be what I think about every day. But going to the conservatory, what it gave me was a common language that I could communicate to other musicians around the world. Uh, Whether it was notation or various word descriptions of what I'm looking for in the music or what have you. Like I said, it gave me a common language. Uh, but I maintain that it didn't make me love or become more interested in music. That was already there and and continues. Um, in some ways, if you're not careful, it could be a detriment in that, at least in my experience, the music conservatory, a lot of what they're telling you are rules. This is allowed. This is not allowed. This is incorrect. This is correct. Um, I'm glad I learned those rules, but it seems to me that the musicians we admire most throughout history are the ones who broke the rules or did not listen to the rules and followed what they heard in their own mind and heart. And therefore the theoricians running behind them wrote the new version of the rules. Oh, now you can do this. And then by the time they published that book, the new genius in music had already broken all those rules. And anyway,
Mhm.
again, I treasure the education and the experience, but there comes a time where I think I've told you in our one of our meetings that for me the brain can be a great enemy of music, and for me the most profound musical experiences have been when my brain was completely shut off and I was let's call it a victim to the beauty of creation, where I don't even know where it's coming from, but I'm just experiencing it. Uh, and many times it breaks those rules.
Interesting.
What I can add to all this, yes, we should think maybe in this image, because I don't remember the word in English is wasita. Wasita. You understand
Medium.
what? Medium.
Medium
Yes.
or
Yeah.
yeah.
Medium is necessary, as I told you before. But when you know what to do with this, you see all these roles. I know many musicians; they are very academic, but when you listen, it's really horrible. Sometimes you prefer an ignorant person who is just giving himself and expressing himself. And you say then, if he knew a bit more about the music, it would be fantastic. But he has the faith. So the learning process is, for me, first of all, you need to have a passion. You have to be really passionate by the music. If you don't have this passion, I mean, um, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. First of all, it's this passion. As we say, aşk and meşk in Farsi.
Yeah.
You love something and then you learn it.
Yeah.
And yeah, because when the passion is there, to learn is very easy. But to come back to the technical material, you see, in Turkey we had a big gap because the Alaturka music was a bit banished and nobody could learn it very. I mean, I always say it's not an answer to the Republic, but you should know that till in 1976, it was forbidden to teach the Makam music in the state institutions. So there was a big gap. But today, the big names that I can give the names, for example, Necdet Yaşar, Niyazi Sayın, they learned also 80% of their knowledge in music by listening 78 tours of Tamburi Cemil Bey recordings. You see,
Yeah.
this is a reality. Even today, my students, they find something in YouTube, they say, Hocam, did you hear this? It's so fantastic. Then try to do it. It's a way also learning. So even it's not so new. Huh? There is one book called Hoş Sada, written by Ibn Emin Mahmud Kemal. In the introduction, he says, in our time, we were running and to find a master and submitting to his caprices and to learn something. Today, there is no need. People, they just find a recording and they do it. Well, in the traditional way, the human contact is very important because what I was saying, you even recognize from the first note who is playing. In this transmission with the personal contact, there is this fact. Don't learn only the music, but there is also the personality. It's sort of transmission of mashrab, we call it, interior joy, which communicates also, not only by playing, but by personal contact. So that's why I think the transmission needs also a human contact, not only recordings, by imitating the recordings, I think.
Interesting. What about the idea of giftedness and talent and all of these things?
It
Is
happens.
is this is this a truth or it's overstated or what? You have seen many students and many colleagues.
But you have
Yeah.
the example in front of you, is me. I try to force the doors to make the music.
Yeah, so I mean, from our experience, I know in many scientific discussions, many people deny the idea of giftedness or talent. It's passion, it's somebody well prepared, and so on. Is this, I mean, and the other side is the extremist where they say, you are not gifted, don't try. There is no talent in there, don't try. But I mean, how do you see it from your experience?
Fadil, I've always told you I'm not an intellect or a scholar, so I just talk to you and answer you just at the top of my head. It's sincere, whether it's intelligent or not is not for me to say. But regarding your question, I believe in giftedness.
Mm,
Uh, but Mr. Erguner said a very important word, and that's passion.
mm,
So to you have to have both to accelerate and to achieve. And over the years, I've had parents ask me to talk to their children because they're interested in music, and could you advise them? And I tell the parents, tell your child that they are forbidden from becoming musicians. They cannot do it. And they say, why would you say that? You're a musician. You love what you do. Why would you even say? I said, because if you tell your kid no music and the kid angrily says, oh, okay, they never had a chance. I never asked my parents for permission to learn music.
mm,
They're going to do it because they must do it. This is their hunger. They're going to find a way to listen. They're going to find a way to find an instrument. They're going to play that instrument after their parents go to sleep. They're going to be in their little room playing. My own story was, if it's not boring or taking too much time, I was 4 years old or something, and my parents told me you could go anywhere in the house, but you cannot go in the bedroom, in our bedroom, because there's a oud there, and it's a very delicate instrument. You can touch anything in the house. You cannot touch that oud. That's it. That was my that was my fate. It's the only thing in the house I wanted to touch. And I would touch that when my father was at work and my mother was in the other room sewing, and they could not stop me. And one day my father came home early, and I was on the floor in his bedroom, and I was looking for a little melody, and his first reaction was to yell at me because I'm not supposed to be there. But he saw I was respecting the instrument and trying to find it.
mm.
And that was the moment he said, "Okay, if you respect that instrument, go ahead." And that was it. That was my destiny. So, but I had the giftedness, if I may say that, but also the hunger and passion. And I'm going to be 65 very soon, and so help me, I wake up hungry to learn the universes that I have not learned yet. In other words, that passion has not settled down. I'm now even more desperate because time is becoming precious, and there's so much more I want to hear and learn. So I think you have to have both. You have to be gifted, and you have to be passionate.
Thank you. Kudsi, I need some comment on this. I want to hear about this giftedness and talent.
I
Yeah.
heard when I was in Azerbaijan with my musician friends, they told me a souvenir. of I forgot his name, the great master of Kemanche. He's dead.
Habil, Habil,
Habil,
Habil Aliyev.
Habil Aliyev.
Yeah.
He had a young man who wanted to learn the Kemanche. He was coming all the time to his house. And Habil was a very important cigarette smoker. He was smoking all the time, and the young boy who was not much talented, and he said, "Master, you should stop smoking because you destroy your health." And Habil, he said, "You should stop to play Kemanche because you will destroy the ears of the many people." But of course, some people, if they are not talented and they insist, they want to do it, and I understand. But maybe it comes a very good interpreter after a really real work, but it doesn't come an artist out of this. So I always distinguish the two things. To play very well an instrument or interpret a special a semi repertoire, for me, it doesn't mean that you are an artist. And to become an artist, it needs to be talented, to have a gift, more than the learning of the music. And it happens sometimes. In the story, we know that some personalities like Tatjus Effendi, who was gifted. But you know that Tatjus Effendi was a very bad violin player. Everybody was saying, "You stop playing the violin, compose, and let us play." You see? I don't know if it's true, but this is an anecdote that we say sometimes that you are very good to write, compose, and music, but not good to play an instrument. And today also there is another phenomenon. If you don't know, I don't know if you follow, because some rich people, which they have money, and they want also to become a singer. They invest lots of money to produce their singing. And the result, of course, we arrange with them technical material, some, I don't know how they do it, with harmonizer, etc. All the things are corrected. But I mean, it doesn't give anything, just a personal souvenir. You say, "Okay, I sang," and you let us hear to your friends, and it doesn't bring anything to the art.
If it's okay, I would like to ask Mr. Erguner a question, kind of in regards to this topic. How about genetics? Is the gift of music carried on through genetics?
Well, it's a big question that I ask to myself also, because I am the sixth generation of a family of ney players and musicians.
That's why I ask, exactly.
But of course, I have other friends, brothers, they are not also interested into music. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. And it can be, but it's not because you are the descendant or your father was musician that you become a musician, because you have to also like it personally. I mean, it has to come together. I mean, I am not a ney player because my father was playing ney, but I liked this instrument and I wanted to learn and I like to play it. And I think it's not only a genetic situation. And especially today, on the point of the spirituality or these gurus they are coming, that they give the reference. My father was a master. So I always reply that many prophets they didn't have their children believing to them. You see, if Abraham wouldn't break the idols of his father, he would not be an Abraham. So
Right.
we have to distinguish things.
Right.
Interesting. So my next question is also related to this, the learning process and comparing with the conservatories. We have in the conservatory a graded level, right? Where we say after the 12th grade, you graduate. In our way of traditional learning of music, when do we say, now you are a musician in your own? Is there a criteria for that? And what is the meaning of musicianship?
Wow, it's so broad. I think maybe impossible to answer, but uh, and maybe different for everybody, but these are just words and terms. Uh, so I can only speak on a personal level. Like I said, even as a small child, um, if my parents went to a wedding and I was in the baby carriage, they would bring me to the edge of the stage where there was the music playing. It could be terrible music. It could be Western. It could be Eastern. It didn't matter. I was only relaxed if I could see and hear the music. Uh, so you might say, and I would sit there, by the way, for 5 hours without complaining, just wanting to hear and wonder what's happening and how can I become part of that world. So you might say I was a musician before I could walk because it was the only thing that I was interested in. Um, some other people might only define you as a musician if you're making a living from music.
Mhm.
I don't know. There's endless answers to this question, so I'm going to defer. I'm not going to answer that.
Well, I have to try then because otherwise you would not have an answer to your question. No, but
Actually, I really intend to make it such a broad question because I really want to see the angle you see things from. Right? Go
I
ahead,
I
Kudsi.
I see the situation like this.
Mhm.
Imagine a good, very very good artist of the jewelry
Mm.
who can cut the diamonds and etc. He might have a very ordinary stone to work on it.
Mhm.
Even his art is so beautiful, but at the end it's an ordinary stone.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have a very fantastic diamond, but not a good jewelry to work on it, but still a diamond. You see,
Mhm.
the first thing that when you have somebody who is interested in music, what we call the jawhar,
Mm.
there is something to do. There
Mhm.
can something happen with this.
Mhm.
You understand?
Yeah.
And sometimes you see already that from the first step that I mean, with lots of effort, something it can be embellished, but I mean, it's not doesn't have any value. It's
Mhm.
difficult to say this, but sometimes you have surprises also.
Mhm.
But what we call we say ijazet in Farsi,
Yeah.
permission, it's the equivalent of a diploma, but it was most of the time oral. So
Mhm.
people they were saying that he had his ijazet from the X master. In old
Mhm.
time, I'm talking in old time.
Yeah.
Today, of course, it's conservatory. You have enough point, you have your diploma. But the only thing that the diploma is not, is useless is the art. You can have even doctorate, professor, I don't know, whatever it is. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean anything.
Mhm.
You see. So I understand in musicology, in theory of music, etc., that you can have diplomas, etc. But to give a diploma to art performer is very difficult. And I'm in front of this problem because our conservatory in Rotterdam is performing art university.
Mhm.
You see, so we teach how to perform to the students.
Mhm.
Uh, yes, but most of of the time with regret because he has all the points and he has to pass his diploma, so he cannot do anything. Yeah, it's a formality. Music is not an art who can be limited by the formalities,
Mhm. Yeah. But when do we say
my opinion.
this person is now a musician, even looking at somebody, saying now this guy is a musician?
You can always say it, but many people they are pretending, so that's another.
Now asking the experts.
Well, I'll force myself to give you an answer.
Yeah.
You know, to for me to be a musician, is to think a certain way, is to see the world in a creative, artistic way, is to hear music when you're going to sleep, when you're in the shower, either music that you've already heard and know, or things that are coming to you. Uh, I don't I don't know what it is to be other than that, because that's always been the way I go through my life. And my wife, thank God, she's understood that there are times where it looks like I'm just standing there doing nothing, but I'm hearing something. And she, at first, when we first met, she thought I was going into a trance, or are you ignoring me or something. But now she knows, oh, don't bother him now. He hears something. Uh, so I think to be a musician is to hear music in a way that perhaps others don't hear it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, the question is difficult. We can only answer it philosophically, not
Okay.
related to this.
Interesting.
I would like to tell you one story from Rumi's Mesnevi.
Mm.
A sultan had a son who was very idiot. No way to teach him anything. So he called the service of many masters. After a while, the master said that we cannot teach him anything. It's not possible. At the end, he found a very, very well learned person, who great person, etc. And this guy, he said, I can teach him all I know except one.
Mhm.
I said, you know many things. If one is missing, there's no problem. So 4 years, 5 years, the children follow the master. At the end, the teaching is finished. The sultan, he said, did you teach him all you know? Yes, I teach all except the one that I didn't. I cannot teach him. And the sultan takes off his ring, and he puts in his hand. He says to the children, he says, what is in my hand? And the child takes the measure and looks and take notes, etc. And he says, Daddy, you have in your hand, you know this big thing that you have when you orge that you make farine, big stone that turning. I don't know how we call it. In French we call it moule.
Mhm.
And he said, yes, there is a hole in it. The father, he said, yes, yes. There is a metal around. Yes, yes. I know, father, is the stone of the wheel, the
Yeah.
wheel of the dairyman, we call it.
Mhm.
And the master said, you see, that was the only thing that I could not teach him, that a ring, a, a stone of the moor cannot go fit in the hand. But that is not a
Uh,
joke, you see. So you can learn many things, many things, many things. But there is something that we forget. In the old books, you were saying that I have many books, but is the side of my library with the books. There is this. The other side is library with my CDs and albums.
yes, yes, yes.
I will not show you because you will be jealous.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
And that says the old masters, they were saying that the art in general, is the knowledge of finding good relation between things.
Mm.
Okay. In the case of architecture, good relation between the spaces. In the case of painting, it can be good relation with the forms and colors, etc. And the music is the good relation between the sounds.
Mhm.
So this you can teach mathematically,
Mhm.
but you cannot teach sensibly.
Mm.
Because sensitively, the ears, they are to be educated to learn this good relation. Exactly. That's why we call mashk in music teaching, because in the calligraphy, it was the same thing.
Mhm.
When you write a B, for example, it's a curve like this.
Yeah.
The master makes a B, and you repeat, repeat till the time that the opening and two distance and the deepness is exactly the same, without
Mhm.
calculating.
Yeah.
Because the good relations of the sounds, it becomes in you,
Mhm.
you see. So that's why I insist that we should study the repertoire, the composed pieces, they listen the others, because that your ears, they are so educated that you hear a third major, but which is the minor, natural third major,
Mhm. Yeah.
and you hear it. You cannot say it is a bit lower, a bit up, 1 comma, 2 comma. This is not really go away. You have to hear it. So
Interesting.
then, when this established, that you can say the guy, he knows the language of the music,
Mhm.
but does he have anything to say, tell with this or not is another question. So you can find somebody that he knows the language,
Mhm.
that then you can say he is a musician. But on top of this, we need an artist to say something with the music.
Interesting.
This is more rare, and we can
Interesting.
discuss.
Yeah. Do you like to carry on anything on this point, or I have another question?
You
We
have
are
many
about to
questions,
finish.
Father. Where do
Yeah.
you invent all these questions? My question to you.
Yeah. Tell me.
Where do you find all these questions?
Well, these are my own questions, actually.
Ah, okay.
I thought about them. I really thought that Nadi friends and even myself and all of us discover things as we grow, as we experience many things. Especially you, masters, have seen a lot of things, many cultures, repertoire, students. You have experienced teaching in a way or another. You have seen other methods. You have seen what works, what fails to work,
Mm.
right? I do believe that it will be a treasure to hear from your experience what should be debunked, what should we actually invest on in terms of all of these aspects. So, if you don't mind, I have a few more questions before we conclude. Uh, One very important question for musicians is the effective practice. People talk about practice in many ways, but what is it exactly that we should do in a practice that would really pertain to a great musician or a great performer?
I confessed to you once that my own method over the years is not one that any student should follow. Because uh, in a literal sense, I was never a practicer.
Mhm.
I didn't have a method, or I'm going to do 2 hours every day, or I'm going to do this exercise, or I, I never I never did it that way. And again, I do not recommend this for anybody, but I can only tell you my experience, which is what you're asking for.
Yeah.
So while I didn't practice, what I did do was play every day and for hours and hours and hours until my mother would say, the dinner is on the table, put that instrument down, you have to eat.
Mhm.
Um, and regarding what I was playing, I suppose you could say, well, that is in a sense practicing, but it was exploring, getting to know my instrument, getting to know what sounds good to me. uh, there were always happy accidents where I did something I didn't intend to do, but oh, I liked that, and then that became part of my own uh, you know group of sounds that I put together. uh, but more than playing, I I think I spent most of my life listening,
Mhm.
mostly to my records, but also just to even natural sounds. If it was the windshield wipers on the car making a certain rhythmic pattern that would inspire me, like, oh, this is brilliant, I would have never thought of this, and then go home and try to transcribe that pattern and maybe create something from that. Or uh, I remember one night I had my windows open, was very late, and there was a bird singing different short songs. He did each one of them twice. He repeated it, and then a different one twice, and then a different one. And I ran downstairs and got my digital recorder, and left it there. And he was out there for another 20 minutes. And this was an absolute revelation for me. And I played that recording for somebody who knew birds, and he said that was a mockingbird. So none of those songs belonged to him. He was imitating the birds that he had heard, the bird songs he had heard, and he was just repeating them. So anyway, I did more listening than I did playing or practicing. And again, I don't recommend that, but that was my experience.
Interesting. Kudsi.
I think we are talking about two things different. I mean,
Mm.
to practice an instrument, how to use it technically, etc., and to develop your inspiration is another thing. Because to develop the inspiration is something, as in your example, is something to be attentive to surrounding. Sometimes a poem that you read, it can be a big inspiration, or a book of history can give you so many dreams, etc. Personally, I try to profit. I mean, if you look to my projects, I try to be inspired also by history. Right? I mean, I imagine a situation for example, James Sultan, the son of Mehmet II, he was in prisoner in Nice in France, and he has some poems. And when I read these poems, they inspire me because I put myself in the situation of a person far away from a prince, from far away from his country. It's the first time he's discovering another way of living it. So I mean, anything can be inspiring, anything inspiring, inspiration. But also the music itself that you listen to other music that you can be an inspiration. But it depends to the instruments. Some instruments they need really technically that you access. I mean, a classical pianist he needs really to work every day, every day, every day, every day. I mean, some instruments they need. For example, for Ney, the exercise that you should do is because it's a good contact with your lips. So if you, what is beautiful for my opinion in the Ney is the low notes with big Neys.
Yeah.
And to be able to play this and use this low octave, you need to exercise, but not to play melodies, just one note with all the holes closed. 5 minutes, 10 minutes every day you have to do it because your lips otherwise doesn't hold the instrument. You see, it depends to the instrument. I mean, in the case of Ney, it's different, and for the oud, I suppose there is another situation to develop your capacity of performing, and yeah, and for the vocals also, I mean, they need to open their voice, etc. So exercise and practicing. It depends. Also, you sometimes you have people which they write really impossible pieces to play, and you need to perform to practice to be able to play it. And just to end, I give you one story. I was invited to Ankara. There was a festival about Bela Bartok. Bela Bartok.
Yeah.
I told them I don't have anything to do with Bela Bartok. What do you want me to do? But you can manage something. I prepared something inspired by his transcriptions. After the concert, one man came. You know, Bela in Turkish means calamity. And the guy said the concert was very nice, but why you call this guy calamity, Bela? I thought that he was joking, and I said, "Yeah." I understood that he was serious. I said, "Yeah, we call it Bela calamity because his compositions are so difficult to play." Then you need practicing.
Interesting.
Very good.
Interesting. Uh, One last question here is the advice to the musicians of today who are listening to us. What shall they focus on in this kind of music that we do? What's their investment mostly should be on or in?
Fadil, I've always told anybody that has asked that question that I don't know what alternative we have other than to listen to our own heart and our own ears.
Mhm,
Because if there's 50 people, 50 people hear 50 different things.
mhm,
If we don't hear that something is wrong, we don't stand a chance as musicians. But regarding a path,
mhm,
regarding what you want to do with your life as a musician,
mhm,
I don't think we can uh, ask the public, what do you want to hear? I don't think we could ask our parents because anything we do, our parents think is wonderful. I don't even think we should ask our own fellow musicians. The I don't understand what alternative there is other than to react to what it is that you're playing. Does it move you? Is this what you want to hear?
mhm,
Uh, if it isn't, even if people tell you, "Oh, that was wonderful," thank you, but if it's not what you wanted to hear, you have to seek out what you want to hear. And once you find it, maybe your audience doesn't want to listen to it. But as Mr. Erguner said, it's global now. Maybe the audience is in Australia. Maybe that's exactly what they want to hear. But again, although it may sound selfish, we have to only respond to what is moving us as individuals, as individual musicians. This is what moves me, and I offer it to the world. They want it, they don't want it, but this is what I hear.
interesting.
You know the word sema?
In Arabic
Yes,
means listening.
yes.
Yeah.
It's like the verb sami'ul basir,
Yes.
listening and looking.
Yeah.
This word is used for the ceremony of whirling dervishes, sema.
Mm.
Just to
Yes.
give you an example of the formalism.
Mhm,
And people, they think that when you are whirling, you are doing sema, which doesn't mean anything. Because you listened and you are moved, and people, they turn or they move. I don't know what happened, or they just stay, but they are moved interiorly in emotion with this. What we call emotion is a movement, interior movement.
mhm,
So when you listen something, there can be sometimes two way of listening. You just let yourself to 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 be with this music, and the other one is just the music becomes like an ambience,
mhm,
like a decor.
mhm,
You see, it's there, but nobody listens. But it creates a good feeling because the music is there. I mean, you have most of the time in the lobbies of the hotel.
mhm,
This kind of music is there, but it's not there. Nobody listens it.
mhm,
So there are some music which they don't accept the situation.
mhm,
I think The same case for the Ara and me. I don't think that you can put my Taksim in the hotel lobby to let people to feel better when they come in. I don't, I don't see any logic into it. You see, so I think music needs to be listened, not to be just considered as a decor in the deep in the other part of the room. Without listening, you can still speak with your friend and eat or anything. I don't know.
Yeah.
But unluckily, in our countries in Orient now, I'm not talking about New York, Europe, because in Europe there's a tradition of listening to music. But in our countries, the music is an enjoyment, so in an atmosphere. Okay, so you have to eat, you have to drink, and you speak. We don't listen. Sometimes you have something else to do. That I think is irrespectable for the music. Not a good way of listening it. You don't profit, and it's not encouraging for the artist also when you are in this situation. See, and I know that many musicians from the old generation they were complaining also from this.
Yeah.
And sometimes we know that music gives you a feeling that you don't want to leave it. You need to be dancing, enjoying, etc. And there's somebody who's playing some blues, very deep blues, and it's not in good context. So the music also should be listened in a good context. And yeah, there are so many things. I I don't know if I told you that I gave the name of my last album, Royal Melancholies. You know, did I explain you why?
Please explain.
Because Abdul Hamid,
Yeah.
Sultan Abdul Hamid, he was very fond of piano and Western classical music.
Yeah.
And some people insist to him, you have in your time a great musician. His name is Tamburi Cemil Bey. You should invite him and listen to him. And he's been so much forced. He said, okay, bring him. And so Tamburi Cemil Bey comes, he sits on the chair in front of the Sultan, and he starts to play a taksim. After a few while, a member of the palace comes and he holds his hand. He said, please stop. You provoke a deep melancholy to our Sultan. You should stop.
Oh, that's beautiful.
In Turkish, we say hüsnü şahane. You provoke the hüsnü şahane. So it depends. I mean, if you want to consider the music for dancing, for having happiness, for something else, or if you consider the music of some as a provocation of a deep thinking and feeling, etc., it's another thing. I mean, so the problem today, we want to put everything in the same context. Sufi music for the marriage, religious music for the ball, it doesn't work. So every genre of music, every art of an artist has his place, and we have to respect it.
So everyone has its own makam, as we say in Arabic.
Sorry?
We use the word makam.
Yes. Yeah, yes. Yeah. It has to be in his makam.
Yes.
Recently, a few days before, they proposed me to make a concert in the when in Üsküdar, when the boats they are embarked are to make a concert on open air. I said, what are you talking about? Do you know what I'm playing? So unluckily, some promoters also they don't know what they are doing. I mean, so listening is also related to the aspect of the music itself.
Yes. Interesting. Masters, I really enjoyed the time. It was really a rich conversation with you and really sharing your experiences on this. Really happy
I'm
to
very
have
happy
him.
also to see Ara because I know him since many years now by his work and by common friends that
Yeah,
have been working with him. So I hope that one day we will physically come together and musically we come together.
yes.
Again, you were ahead of me, but you're echoing exactly how I feel, Fadil. With all due respect, I hope you have a program that is useful to you and to the listeners. But selfishly, to have met Kudsi Erguner through this Zoom meeting has been a great honor and pleasure, and I I echo your thoughts. I hope we get to meet physically and musically someday. But meanwhile, please know I send you my love and respect. And you too, Fadil. Thank you for all that you
Same,
do,
same,
for
same,
bringing us all together.
Thank you very much.
same. Have a nice evening. I don't know if it's in the evening in New York. Yeah, not yet.
I'm going to pick up my twin grandsons from school now.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you
Best
very much
wishes.
for your time.
Yeah.
Thank
Really.
you. Bye
Nice
bye.
to see you all.
We'll
Bye.
see you soon then. Thank you very much.
مسكين ياللي مبتلي حب اللي عذب حالك مسكين ياللي مبتلي حب اللي عذب حالك ياما وياما سوا وعشاق من أمثالك ياما وياما سوا وعشاق من أمثالك اصبر على بلواك بلكي الزمان يساعدك وتنك مع بلواك يضيك اللي وعدك وتنك مع بلواك يضيك اللي لو كان لك بالحب صار جليل ما خانك لو كان لك بالحب صار جليل ما خانك اللي توعدهم بالعكس كلهم صفا وعدوانا واللي توعدهم بالعكس كلهم صفا وعدوانا اصبر على بلواك بلكي الزمان يساعدك لكن من جار الدهر ومن ولد وافعالا لا تشكي من جار الدهر ومن ولد وافعالا منه الذي من الحب سلام كنا ترى بها الحالة منه الذي من الحب سلام كنا ترى بها الحالة اصبر على بلوى بك الزمان تساعدك روحي معذبة ونار الهجر تسويها همهاي دنيا وتنقضي وحسابك والثانية اصبر على بلواك بلك الزمان العالم